Okay, tonight is the 28th of August, 2011, and this is the second night we are speaking on the Dhammapada. Now we come to verse 44, chapter 4, Pupa Vaga, flowers, chapter, verse 44. Who shall overcome this earth, the world of misery, and this fear of humans and gods? Who shall bring to perfection the well-taught path of wisdom, as an expert garland maker would his floral design? A striver, 45, a striver on the path shall overcome this earth, the world of misery and this fear of humans and gods. The striver on the path shall bring to perfection the well-taught path of wisdom, as an expert garland maker would his floral design. So a person striving on the path only can overcome the world of misery, the world of suffering. 46. Realizing that this body is like frost, penetrating its mirage-like nature and plucking out Mara's flower-tipped arrows of sensuality, go beyond the sight of the King of Death. This world, if we perceive it with our six senses, it looks so real. But the Dhamma teaches us this is all the workings of consciousness, just like a dream. And to go beyond the sight of the King of Death, that means you have to attain the deathless. When a person becomes an arahant, he attains the deathless. So there is no self to die. Only the body dies. 47. As a mighty flood sweeps away the sleeping village, so death carries away the person of grasping or clinging mind, who only collects the flowers of pleasure. 48. The destroyer brings under his sway the person of grasping mind, who, insatiate in sense desires, only collects the flowers of pleasure. This is one of my favorite verses, 47. A mighty flood sweeps away the sleeping village. Several years ago, there's one village, Orang Asli village, and they call it Sahom, and they were sleeping at night, and the rains brought the logs rushing down the river, and these logs just swept all the houses by the side of the river in the pitch darkness, and many people drowned. So in the same way, death will carry away the person with a clinging mind when he's enjoying the pleasures of the world, worldly pleasures. A lot of people are like that. We never think that death will come and touch us on the shoulder. So we just go on enjoying life. And then one day we are swept away like the flood sweeping the sleeping village. 49. As a bee gathers honey from the flower without injuring its color or fragrance, even so the sage should go on his arms round in the village. So if a monk goes on his arms round, he's not expecting too much, so it doesn't bring harm to the villagers, just like the bee. Number 50. Let none find fault with others. Let none see the omissions and commissions of others. But let one see one's own acts, done and undone. It's very common for people to always look at other people's faults. But the Buddha always tells us to look at our own faults. Other people, they have their burden to carry. We have our burden to carry to correct ourselves, to improve ourselves. But when there are many people, like in the monastery, people tend to look at other people's fault. But always remember this verse 50, look at your own fault. 51. Like a beautiful flower full of color but without fragrance, even so fruitless are the fair words of one who does not practice them. 52. Like a beautiful flower full of color and also fragrant, even so fruitful are the fair words of one who practices them. So it's very important to walk the talk, as they say. Whatever we say, we should practice it. Otherwise, you become a hypocrite. Number 53. As from a great heap of flowers, many garlands can be made. Even so, should many good deeds be done by one born a mortal. So when we come into this human life, a lot of people, we lead a very selfish life. And at the end of life, we regret, we are remorseful. Good life is one where we not only benefit ourselves, we benefit as many people as we can. 54. Not the sweet smell of flowers, not even the fragrance of sandal, tagara, or jasmine goes against the wind. But the fragrance of the virtuous goes against the wind. The virtuous person pervades all directions with the fragrance of virtue. Sometimes we do something unwholesome, and we think nobody knows, but all the devas and devis and all the ghosts will know, all the spirits will know. So in the same way, if a person is virtuous, all the spirits also will know, because they are psychic, can read our mind. So if a virtuous person, that's why the fragrance pervades all directions. All the spiritual beings know. 55. Of all the fragrances, sandal, tagara, blue lotus and jasmine, the fragrance of virtue is by far the sweetest. 56. Faint is the fragrance of tagara and sandal, but the fragrance of the virtuous is excellent, wafting even among the gods. So even the gods also know if a person is virtuous. 57. Mara never finds the path of the truly virtuous, who abide in vigilance and are freed by perfect knowledge. If a person is freed by perfect knowledge, that means he becomes an arahant. So when he passes on, then the consciousness stops. Then Mara will try to find where the arahant is reborn, but he can never find, because the consciousness of the arahant doesn't take rebirth. This is found in our suttas. I think there were 2 arahants who passed away, and different times. And the Buddha went to see, and then after that the Buddha told his disciples, "You look in the distance, a black cloud flying here and there." And they say, "Yes, they see." And then the Buddha said, "That is Mara trying to find the consciousness of the arahant." But the Buddha said he can never find, because the consciousness has stopped. 59. The consciousness has stopped means the dream has stopped, the dream of life. 58 to 59. As upon a heap of rubbish in the roadside ditch, blooms a lotus, fragrant and pleasing. Even so, on the rubbish heap of blind worldlings, the disciple of the Supremely Enlightened One shines resplendent in wisdom. Another example the Buddha gave is like in a pond, lotus. Although the lotus takes root in the mud, but the flower goes above the mud, goes above the water, and blooms. So even so is a person who becomes enlightened. Chapter 5, Bala Vaga, the fool. 60. Long is the night to the sleepless. Long is the league to the weary. Long is worldly existence to fools who know not the good Dhamma. And we cannot sleep at night. The hours seem to go by so slowly as we toss and turn on the bed. So when a person is tired also, the league here in Pali is a yojana. It's supposed to be 10 kilometers distance. So if you're very tired, you have to walk another 10 kilometers. You find it very tiresome. So similarly, when we turn in samsara and we suffer, then Samsara is very long, but when you understand the Dhamma, you get right view, then you're on your way out. 61. Should a seeker not find a companion who is his better or equal, let him resolutely pursue a solitary course. There is no fellowship with a fool. So on the spiritual path, if we have a companion who is better than us, more advanced spiritually or equal to us, then we can discuss Dhamma. We don't want to associate with fools, wasting our time. 62. The fool worries, thinking, I have sons, I have wealth. Indeed, when he himself is not his own, whence are sons, whence is health? A lot of people now, we have property, a lot of people have property, have children and all that. So it keeps worrying about the children, keeps worrying about the property. But Buddha says, even your own body doesn't belong to you. How can your sons and your property belong to you? They are all on loan to us. If our karma is good, we have more things to use. But not a single thing belongs to us. It's only for us on loan to use because of our good karma. And then after a few more years, we will pass on. Have to leave it all behind. We cannot even bring our body with us. How can we bring all our property? 63. A fool who knows his foolishness is wise, at least to that extent. But a fool who thinks himself wise is called a fool indeed. Some people, they are not so smart. At least they acknowledge they are not so smart. But the big fool is the one, he doesn't realize that he's a fool, but everybody sees that he's the biggest fool. 64. Though all his life a fool associates with a wise man, he no more comprehends the Dhamma than a spoon tastes the flavor of the soup. 65. Though only for a moment a discerning person associates with a wise man, quickly he comprehends the Dhamma just as the tongue tastes the flavor of the soup. Even if we were to live together with an Arahant, if we don't take the trouble to find out about the Dhamma, about the spiritual path, then we don't know anything about it. So if a fool associates with a wise man, he doesn't have the wisdom to ask and to understand, so you won't get a taste of the Dhamma. 66. Fools of little wit are enemies unto themselves as they move about doing evil deeds, the fruits of which are bitter. So as I mentioned before, we are our greatest enemy if we do unwholesome deeds. But if we practice the Dhamma and do wholesome deeds, we are our best benefactor, our best friend. 67. Ill done is that action which, having been done, is repented later, and the fruits of which one reaps weeping with a tearful face. 68. Well done is that action which, having been done, is not repented later, and the fruits of which one reaps with delight and happiness. If we do something wrong and we regret it, because we have a conscience, every one of us have a conscience, but sometimes because of greed, hatred and delusion, we refuse to listen to our conscience. But even though you refuse to listen to the conscience and do unwholesome action, the day will come when you realize that you did wrong and you will regret. But if you did wholesome action, then you'll always be happy that you did it. 69. So long as an evil deed has not ripened, the fool thinks it as sweet as honey. But when the evil deed ripens, the fool comes to grief. So when we do evil, we think nobody knows and we enjoy it. For example, cheat people, commit adultery and all that. And we are enjoying the fruits of it. But when the vipaka comes, the karma ripens, then we have to pay with interest some more. 70. Month after month, a fool may eat his food with the tip of a blade of grass, but he is still not worth a 16th part of those who have comprehended the Dhamma. This eating food with the tip of a blade grass probably refers to the austerities, the ascetic practices of the external sect ascetics during the Buddha's time. The Buddha says all that not worth at all compared to those who comprehend the Dhamma. Comprehending the Dhamma, there are many various levels. If you attain the vision of the Dhamma, then you become an Arya. 71. Truly an evil deed committed does not immediately bear fruit, like milk that does not turn sour at once, but smouldering, it follows the fool like fire covered by ashes. So sometimes you do an evil deed. Some people, they don't see the result immediately, and so they don't believe in karma vipaka. But at the end of life, and then they know. So even if they don't pay for it at the end of life, sometimes a few lifetimes later, they still have to pay for it. 72. To his own ruin, the fool gains knowledge, for it cleaves his head and destroys his innate goodness. This knowledge is worldly knowledge, nothing to do with the Dhamma. Some people, they have knowledge. The more they learn, the more arrogant they become. So harms himself. 73. The fool seeks undeserved reputation, precedence among monks, authority over monasteries, and honor among householders. This refers to a monk, a foolish monk who wants fame, wants seniority and honor, etc. 74. Let both laymen and monks think that it was done by me. In every work, great and small, let them follow me. Such is the ambition of the fool. Thus his desire and pride increase. This similarly is about the foolish monk who wants recognition, who wants fame and all that. 75. One is the quest for worldly gain, and quite another is the path to Nibbana. Clearly understanding this, let not the monk, the disciple of the Buddha, be carried away by worldly acclaim, but develop detachment instead. So here it's talking about the monk. Sometimes monks wear the robe, and they forget that the duty is to practice the spiritual path. They get carried away by fame. And then there are some monks, they do a lot of worldly things. Now we come to chapter 6, Pandita Vaga, the wise man. 76. If one finds someone who points out faults and who reproves, one should follow such a wise and sagacious person as one would a guide to hidden treasure. It is always better and never worse to cultivate such an association. 77. Let him admonish, instruct, and shield one from wrong. He indeed is dear to the good and detestable to the evil. This one, if you can find a teacher or somebody who can point out your fault, the Buddha says, don't go away from him. As for monks, the Buddha said, if you find a teacher can tell you your faults and correct you, then you, until the end of your life, you should stay with him. But people who don't want to change, don't want to admit their wrongs, they detest such a person who points out their faults. Sometimes you see in everyday life, you see some people, they have some fault. You try to be good, you try to tell them their fault, and they get angry. Why? Because they never look within. They always look outside. Never look at themselves. Always look at other people's fault. Never see their own fault. So when you tell them, they get angry because they don't believe it. Their eye is turned outside, never turned inside. 78. Do not associate with evil companions. Do not seek the fellowship of the vile. Associate with good friends. Seek the fellowship of noble persons. This one, the other time we went through the Digha Nikaya Sutta. What's the name? Sigalovada Sutta, talking about good friends and false friends. But the best friend is a noble person. Arya. 79. One who drinks deep the Dhamma lives happily with a tranquil mind. The wise person ever delights in the Dhamma made known by the noble one or the Arya. So, if we practice the Dhamma and then we become happy, we have a tranquil mind if we meditate. Number 80, irrigators regulate the waters. Arrow makers straighten the arrow shaft. Carpenters shape the wood. The wise control themselves. Just like the irrigators, they can control the waters, and the arrow makers, the shaft, carpenters, the wood. So the wise control their mind. Don't allow the mind to control them. 81. Just as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, even so the wise are not affected by praise or blame. If a person is affected by praise and blame, then he is still very worldly. If you are intent on the Dhamma, then don't bother whether people praise you or blame you. 82. On hearing the teachings, the wise become perfectly purified, like a lake deep, clear and limpid. That is, if you put the Dhamma into practice also. 83. The good renounce everything. The virtuous do not prattle with a yearning for pleasures. The wise show no elation or depression when touched by happiness or sorrow. It's quite similar. There are 8 things supposed to able to move us. Happiness or sorrow, gain and loss and all that. The 8 winds, the Chinese call. 84. He is truly virtuous, wise and righteous, who neither for his own sake nor for the sake of another does any wrong, who does not crave for sons, wealth or kingdom, and does not desire his own success by unjust means. Person is wise if you understand the Dhamma, and when you understand the Dhamma, you know that life is impermanent, and very soon we have to go, and we have to let go. Whether we like it or not, we have to let go of everything in the world. So it'd be better if we let go earlier. Then you're free to do what is important. 85. Few among human beings are those who cross to the further shore or the farther shore. The rest, the bulk of people, only run up and down the hither bank. This one sometimes we chant the Pali. Apakate manusesu ye jana paragamino atayang itara pajatira meva nudavati. So, 86. But those people who act according to the perfectly taught Dhamma will cross the realm of death, so difficult to cross. So the bulk of human beings, we are all on this side of samsara. Only those who practice the Dhamma become an Arya, then you cross over the realm of death, which is so difficult to cross. 87 and 88. Abandoning the dark way, let the wise man cultivate the bright path. Having gone from home to homelessness, let him yearn for that delight in detachment, so difficult to enjoy. Giving up sensual pleasures with no attachment, the wise man should cleanse himself of defilements of the mind. When a person goes forth into homelessness, there is a lot of difficulty, but most of this difficulty is physical suffering. And then if he practices meditation and attains tranquility of mind, one-pointedness of mind, then he attains mental happiness. So that mental happiness more than pays for that physical suffering. 89. Those whose minds have reached full excellence in the factors of enlightenment, who having renounced attachments, rejoice in not clinging to things, rid of asavas, glowing with wisdom, they have attained nibbana in this very life. So one who practices the bojjhangas, the factors of enlightenment, and then he attains liberation. That is attaining Nibbana in this very life. Sometimes people think of Nibbana in terms of the afterlife, but Nibbana is attained in this life itself, can be attained. Now I come to chapter 7, Arahanta Vaga, on the Arahant or the perfected one. 90. The fever of passion does not exist for one who has completed the journey, who is sorrowless and wholly set free and has broken all ties. This Arahant has no more passions. Passions referring to anger, lust, and all that. 91. The mindful ones exert themselves. They are not attached to any home. Like swans that abandon the lake, they leave home after home behind. So a person who has attained liberation, anywhere he goes, he's not attached to the place. So he moves from place to place without any attachment. 92. Those who do not accumulate and are wise regarding food, whose object is the signless, the unconditioned freedom. Their track, like that of birds in the air, cannot be traced. Those whose asavas are destroyed and who is not attached to food, whose object is the signless, the unconditioned freedom, his path, like that of birds in the air, cannot be traced. So the Arahant, he has no more self, so cannot be traced. 94. Even the gods hold dear the steadfast one, whose senses are subdued, like horses well trained by a charioteer, whose pride is destroyed and who is free from the asavas. We saw before in the Digha Nikaya that these devas from far away, they come. They know there's an Arahant, they pay respect to the Arahant. From high up in the sky, they'll bow down to the Arahants. 95. There is no more worldly existence for the steadfast one, who, like the earth, resents nothing, who is as firm as a high pillar and as pure as a deep pool free from mud. 96. Calm is his thought, calm his speech, and calm his deed, who, truly knowing, is wholly free, perfectly tranquil and steadfast. This one refers to the Arahant. Like the earth resents nothing. This earth, in the sutta, the Buddha says, if you spit on the earth, it's not, the earth doesn't feel anything. If you burn the earth also, the earth doesn't complain. So in the same way, Arahant is unmoving. 97. The man who is without blind faith, who knows the uncreate, who has severed all links, who has destroyed all causes, and who has thrown out all desires, he truly is the most excellent of men. And this also refers to the Arahant, who knows the uncreate. 98. Inspiring indeed is that place where Arahants dwell, be it a village, a forest, a vale, or a hill. Wherever Arahants dwell, that place is peaceful, according to, I think, another sutta. 99. Inspiring are the forests where worldlings find no pleasure. There the passionless will rejoice, for they seek no sensual pleasures. In the forest, where the animals abound, you don't have the normal things that human beings enjoy, worldly pleasures. So worldly people don't like to go to such a place. But those on the spiritual path, they like such quiet places.